I think it's foolish to think Trump is an idiot. Now, let me explain. You see, what he's doing is something that many, especially us in Asia, have long thought America should do. That is, to accept the return of China instead of trying to stop it and fight it. You can see this in his China approach. His second term is noticeably less hostile on China, cordial even. Instead, he threatens old allies like Canada, Panama, and Greenland. Is there a logic to his erratic behavior? I suspect there is, and if I am right, Trump might be the most awakened, pragmatic, and visionary leader America has had for quite a while. And it all has to do with something he has been harping about for a long time: to bring manufacturing back to America and to make America great again. I am sure he is not short of visionary advisors, and anyone who has been a keen reader of history would have asked this simple question: why did great empires like Rome, the Mongol, the British came and went, but China has seen multiple winters in the last 3,000 years and has sprung back every single time? This is a complicated question, and there is no one simple answer that neatly explains why this is so. But one pertinent factor that allows China to weather winter after winter, while many empires crumble after just one winter, is China's economic model. The economic model of successive Chinese dynasties is the reason why China as a political concept is so resilient. But it is also the reason why China has been slow in its territorial growth, especially compared to other imperial peers. There is a trope, often parroted by those in the Sinosphere, that China grows by assimilation, not by conquest. While this is not entirely correct, there are some grains of truth to this claim. You see, throughout the early classical period to at least the medieval period, China means only the Central Plains, with a later extension towards the hilly hinterlands in the south after the Han Dynasty. This is what we call China proper. Manchuria, Mongolia, Tibet, and the Western frontier were all added into China, technically not by the Chinese themselves, but rather by invading groups of people that were later Sinicized to a varying degree. And why those who invade China invariably, at least until today, turns into China culturally and politically themselves, and then annex their own territory into China? Because to run China, one has to become China. That means to adopt the political bureaucracy of China, to adopt the culture, language, and philosophy of China, and most importantly, to set up an economy like China. An economy of agrarian and manufacturing self-sufficiency, supported by taxing the peasantry through robust civil service in return for infrastructural development and militaristic protection. Successive China became prosperous not by conquest, exploitation of people, or far-fledging trade routes, but rather by building an economy based on robust internal production and consumption and taxing these production. The Mongols learned this too little too late and lost their China in less than a century. The Manchurians learned this too well and too completely, and in turn became Chinese. Translating this into the modern era, this means that for an empire to build a robust economy, it needs to be self-sufficient in agriculture, in energy, raw materials, and most importantly, manufacturing. In its current trajectory, America's prosperity hinges on unsustainable exploitation, like the militaristic exploitation of Rome and Mongol, or the economic exploitation of the British. Continuing on this trajectory is bound to make America a one-winter empire. What Trump is doing is trying to make America great again, and great doesn't necessarily mean the richest, but rather self-sufficient and self-sustaining, the way that many Chinese dynasties were. He is now tightening his grip on those he considers within the American spheres of influence, strengthening and preparing for a multipolar world. In a way, he is accepting that there are now many within the Chinese spheres outside of American control, and he chooses to focus on those that is within American control. He threatens Canada, Panama, and Greenland exactly because these are close allies of America, unlikely to shift allegiance to other spheres. Canada for raw material, Panama for logistics, and Greenland for pipeline and also logistics. This is actually the right move, but perhaps not the right methods. My only skepticism is that the realization of his vision is a multi decade undertaking. The Western political system is not amenable to generational projects of this scale. Now, unless Trump is able to turn his democracy into a dynasty, what he sees may not be shared by his political opponents within.